I wrote down some questions, but first of all, I wanted to just ask you, because I was looking at the book, and you know, suicide is a really strong word. I think I understand why there's this sort of like title, a novel about living, Suicide Club, a novel about living. And I'm just really intrigued by that and how that ended up on the cover of your book, and if you made that decision, and why.
Yeah, it's interesting. So this was the original title for my first draft, and I had always imagined, so it came from a short story that was basically, not giving away any spoilers, but it was set at a party, and when you enter the story, you're like, oh, it's just people having kind of a birthday party or something, and then you find out that it's a funeral, and the story's set in a world where people can no longer die. So it's quite different from here, where it's like they're trying to achieve immortality, but in that story they couldn't die at all, so death was a cause of celebration. And I was always interested in like exploring that, sort of turning that on its head, because I'm terrified of dying. So that's where it came from, and that's where the title came from that initial draft. And then I had it for this book, and we sold the book with the title. And then halfway through the editing process, I was like, maybe we should change the title. And I told my editor that I wanted to change it, and I had another title which every time I tell people what it is, they say it's really bad. So
well, who you have to
tell you guys?
I mean, now you have to tell us. We'll be the judge of that.
Yeah, I'm not going to. Maybe if you ask me next time. But anyway, so I had another title, and but both my publishers in the UK and the US really liked this title, and they wanted me to keep it. And I talked to the editor about it, and she said, yeah, she understood like why there might be concerns, because there might be sensitivity around it, but it's really not a book about suicide in the real world. It's a book where it deals with kind of artificial life extension and what immortality means and what it means to be in a world where you can't die altogether. And that being one kind of end of the terrible spectrum, and then the other end of it being fully in control of your death. And she thought people would get it. And then how
she thought people
would get it.
Would
she wanted to keep it. And then fast forward to, I don't know, maybe it was, I think the cover was already out. Then she called me and she was like, oh, we think we want to put this subtitle on it. And I'm like, you said?
Yeah, right.
So so it was kind of, I think, it was a back and forth. And they wanted the title, but then they were, and this is just in the US, so this wasn't exist in the UK. Wow. So I think it's quite kind of country specific as well.
Wow. The word suicide is so loaded, and it seems like, although now I can only think of the one movie, The Virgin Suicides, like it seems like it was a book, right? There's like there's a way of using that word that is, it didn't occur to me until I was like, oh yeah, it's called The Suicide Club. Like that's a really strong title, and I thought, oh, it's so smart that there's that little like an asterisk.
Yeah. Because I think, when people ask me what the book's about, I can tell them the premise, and I'm like, oh, it's about a world where people live forever, and so they can't die anymore, and so there's a group of activists, and they're called Suicide Club, and they're against that. But I think what the subtitle does get at, which I don't often get to cover in that like brief summary, is that it is a pretty hopeful, life-affirming book, which sounds weird to say, like title, but I think it's about, it's about facing and confronting mortality in a way that's hopefully comforting and not depressing.
And it turns the idea of suicide on its head. And it's like suicide being this sort of one and only escape from fate. Right. But it's not about, not being necessarily happy in your life, but just wanting to get out of this world. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit. I love reading dystopian novels because at first when you enter it, it's like you get to learn the world, and it's, you have all of this like lingo and, the way that you sort of transmit information about the world is really impeccably done. And I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about how you created the world of the novel, and if there are like parts of the world you created that like just didn't kind of, is there a larger world beyond that you sort of thought, like what you put in and what you don't put in?
World building. I It started for me, so when I write, I often start with an idea or setting rather than a person or voice. So for me, that's how this started. And I had that short story that I was mentioning earlier that I had written 3 years before. So I think I already had kind of a sense of what the world was like. And when I sat down to kind of plan the novel, I couldn't really plan it in terms of events or plots. It was really sitting down, and I had this little notebook that I would ask myself questions in and then just respond to the questions. Like, how would it work with, I don't know, like fertility, or like would there be religion? And it was just kind of just basic ideas about the world. And then I would just answer them to myself kind of in this stream of consciousness way. And a lot of that didn't make it into the book, but yeah, it was just kind of, and I did that for about a month, where I would sit down every day and just think about questions about the world and try to figure that out. So when I sat down to actually start writing the book, I didn't know anything about the characters or like what they would do, but I knew a lot about the world and the conflicts of the world.
Did you do, one of the things that also is kind of terrifying about the book is that it's like not, I mean, metaphorically, it's not far from like a lot of things that are actually existent in the world now. Like I think a lot about climate change. The idea that you create a world with this idea that like here this new reality where immortality is possible, and wouldn't you want to extend your life? And wouldn't it be better? And oh my gosh, we have skin that repairs itself, and who wouldn't want skin that repairs itself? But then there's like a tipping point almost where you realize like, oh, what have we done? Like we've industrialized this world, but now what have we done? So it's like sort of, in reading the book, you kind of come to that as well. Like, oh gosh, this is real. So I wondered though if there was anything in this book that you actually researched did you do research in the real world now?
So I think it was inspired by stuff in the real world. So I didn't have to do the research because I was imbibing the information on a daily basis. So I'd be like reading stuff, and then I hear about a dude who had paid someone to cut off his head after he died from cancer and have it frozen for $35,000 so that he could be revived thousands of years in the future when they had figured out how to revive bodies from frozen heads.
Right.
So stuff like that was happening in the world. And then other things like, I don't know if people have read that New Yorker piece about like Silicon Valley billionaires who basically are like, trying to hack death. And it's all of these people who, Google's funding it as well apparently, but like lots of billionaires, that's the final question that they can't solve. They become masters of their universes, and they're like, how can we now live forever and like cheat biology? So, but then to me that's really interesting because it raises questions about who's going to be able to do that and like access and how it intersects with like socioeconomic inequality and the ways in which it's like, it sounds like it's a good thing. You're like, oh yeah, people can live longer and so on, but really there's something quite dark about this, impulse to like play God, and then, who controls that technology and who has access to it, especially in a place like the US where healthcare is already so screwed up. And it's something that when I first came here really struck me, being from a country with like state-sponsored healthcare. So you're saying, if I don't have money and I go to hospital, no one's gonna treat me, So it seems like all of this life extension stuff is just gonna be exacerbating that situation to the nth degree, and that's pretty terrifying. So I didn't have to do any research because it was happening and I was reading about it and reading all that.
It doesn't seem coincidental that the book takes place in New York City, and that, like you just, in the brief section you just read, she talks about Sweden like kind of eventually coming on board to this idea of life extension, but they're not caught up to the United States. Can you speak a little bit about your decision to set the book in New York City?
Yeah, I think that comes very much from what I was talking about before. When I first came to the US, it was to come to college, and I went to school in New York, so it was really you get introduced to America in this kind of really violent way. But I was just really struck by so many things, like one, the vast inequality, two, the healthcare system, all these things. So to me, it felt very natural to set, a story like this that's so much about the like commoditization of like human life, and the ways in which we assume that when you put things into markets, it's a good thing. So like they're like, oh, this is going to be a digression, but one of my favorite non-fiction books is by, oh man, I'm blanking on his name now, but it's a book called What Money Can't Buy, The Moral Limits of Markets. And it's this economist from Malvern, and he writes about how we kind of assume in like this neoliberal world that like the solution to any problem is marketization, and how being in a market is a neutral thing, but really marketization, it changes the way we fundamentally value the good in that market. So he gives examples of, like here's this great example where he's like, oh, people wanted to increase blood donations, so they were like, oh, let's pay people, compensate them for their time, so that we're gonna, people are gonna come and donate more blood. And so they start paying people for donating blood, but instead what happened was blood donations went down because people started thinking, is it worth my while? And they're like, oh, $15 for an hour to go like get my blood, I'm not going to do that. But previously it was sort of an altruistic thing. So once they put that into a market, so like, okay, now your blood is worth money, that changed the way we viewed it. So I don't know, I think that was really fascinating, and that kind of, inspired a lot of the ideas in this book. What's the real question? Sorry. Oh, setting in New York.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like New York being the kind of epicenter of like global finance and like all that kind of stuff, and also being like the place where all of these crazy breakthroughs happen, and you see that inequality on a daily basis in such a like brutal way. I think that felt very appropriate for this particular story.
There was a certain kind of insularity to the characters who were lifers that was like really kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
You know, they just couldn't see. It's like they've gone down like a rabbit hole of their own. You know, their vision of the world is so limited by this obsession that has become, you know, their bodies are, you know, these, it's an obsession. It's like a group psychosis almost. And it's really interesting. I was just at, I was at the urgent care because I told you my husband, sprained his ankle in the stupidest possible way. Get down. Yes, he climbed on a bike. Climbed up and stood on a bike to get into a tree, to get a kite off from the roof. And he fell out of the tree. Anyway, I was there and I was reading. There was like one magazine in the waiting room, and it was like celebrity homes. And you know, like after like 10 pages of pictures of celebrity homes and reading about like John Travolta's house has an airport, and Jerry Seinfeld's house has a diamond, a baseball diamond. But the weirdest one was Leonardo DiCaprio has some like shower that is enriched with vitamin C to like decrease the chlorine in the water. And the magazine was like spinning it as because he's like so ecologically concerned with concerned with ecology. I just thought like that's like this is mind bending. Like that's not a like green technology. That's like a self-obsession, you know. Yeah. And you can just see. I mean, it was weird to sort of like be thinking about this book and then like seeing these. It's like these are like little micro, you know, insular people who like they're completely concerned. They have to be, right? So you know, where we see it in real life now. You know.
Yeah, I think one thing, especially when you mentioned climate change earlier, that I'm thinking a lot about is survival is a fundamentally selfish impulse, right? I mean, we think about it as, oh yeah, like, you know, we should live longer, we should do all these things, but even with climate change, you're like, yeah, the planet's gonna implode and, you know, like things are going terribly, but it just means we're gonna be extinct, right? Like the planet's still gonna go on, which is a really dark thing to think about, but often I'm like, yeah, you know, maybe it's just part and parcel of like the rise and fall of civilizations and the evolution of like life, and we've like, you know, kind of done our time and that's it, that's all we get, we mess it up, and that's my like human life. But anyway, not
no, that's true. I mean, and these are questions that this book brings up.
Yeah,
really.
You're like here. All these people are like striving to, you know, kind of extend their lives and have the perfect, like, you know, totally invulnerable kind of self. But they're one cutting themselves off from other people, and two like monopolizing resources that then go to lots of other people.
Right. Yeah, and it's so kind of like it's so craftily. It makes it so those characters also don't think much, especially in the beginning, of like what it means to live forever. It's like, you know, it's like the like world has put them in this position, and then because they have something to obsess over, you don't have to like see beyond it.
Yeah.
And it's really like, you know, there's that kind of irony in the reader. It's like that's happening inside the reader before it happens kind of to the characters.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I was really fascinated by the character. Is it Leah? Lee?
I say it Lee, but like lots of people say Leo.
Lee. Because she's, you know, for all intents and purposes, she's sort of the protagonist of the story. And then she has these really like violent. She at least had two, which I remember. Rachel read some of the like a couple of pages from this book in our class about the rabbit. And then later with the voyage white.
Yeah.
And in the end, it's so interesting to me because that like dark, violent thing that she has in her, which, you know, typically in a book, that is not a likable characteristic in a character, you know, a likable characteristic. In the end, when she helps, is it Anya, sort of end her mother's life, it's like somehow this like weird saving grace, you know. It's like it's a good thing that she has this ability to like cross a line that, you know, we wouldn't.
Yeah, and that she had been suppressing for a long time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why the title is so interesting to me, because it really does turn the idea of what suicide means on its head, you know? Yeah. I am fascinated by, again, I thought a lot about how you kind of built the world, but I also would love it if you could talk a little bit about what it does when you're making a story, a novel, which is like a time-based thing, when like the span of time we typically, as humans, kind of can account for, like a lifespan or a generation, as we know it now, is like totally turned on its head, so that there is no, you know, that like what does it do to memory? Did you take into consideration, like, would she remember something that happened like 175 years ago? Or, you know, like, what does it do to you as a writer when you're dealing with this kind of inflated sense of time and memory?
I think, I read this book, it's called Poking a Dead Frog, another non-fiction book, and it's like interviews of comedians, and they interviewed this, one was really amazing, it was this 97-year-old radio, one of the first women, I can't remember her name, but she was one of the first women to ever do comedy on the radio. She was 97 years old, and they did this beautiful interview about like how she became a comedian, her life's on. But one of the questions that they asked her was, how does it feel to be 97 years old? And she said, it feels exactly the same as when you're 18, except all your friends are dead. And it's like one of the things that just like seared itself into my memory, and I could never unforget, and deeply affected me. But anyway, so I don't know, and lots of people, and my mom, you know, she's like over 60, and she always says to me, how did this happen? Like, how did I become 60? Like, I still feel I'm 30. How can I have a 30-year-old daughter? You know, it doesn't, and I hear this all the time, and I feel that way, and I'm only 30, but I often feel that about, you know, being younger. And it's something that I find to be one of the saddest things. Shangyan, who's like 24 already, he's old, but
oh, he is old. He is. He should feel older.
But so I think the way I dealt with the extended time frame was, I think somehow we age, but then in certain ways we don't age, or at least that's my conclusion, that's my hypothesis. And so far, no one has told me I've been wrong, so hopefully it's right.
To think about them. Think about a lifespan being just, the idea of a lifespan being totally kind of, in a third wave, right?
Yeah.
There is no such thing as a lifespan. I'm going to ask one more question, and then maybe we can take questions from the. This is the question I wanted to ask. What are you working on now? Now that your book is out.
I'm working on a longer project, which...
Longer than a novel?
No, it's a novel. I just don't want to call it that because it's a Word document.
It's a Word document. I'm working on a Word document.
I'm working on a very long Word document that at some point might be a fully approximately the length of your book. So, yeah.
Wow, sounds fascinating.
But yeah, it's a novel, and it's quite different from this. It's historical.
Historical?
Yeah, so future and past. So it's historical, it's based in Singapore, and it's about land reclamation. So which is the process of like filling out sea and swamp and kind of extending coastlines.
Oh.
Yeah, so Singapore has increased in size by 22% since like 1965. Wow. Which I have always found like fascinating.
Yes.
So it's kind of about that.
Out this way.
Yeah.
Wow. That sounds really fascinating. How far along are you, or do you not know?
I'm like 40,000 words in, but I'm kind of like 15% into the story.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that sounds
so it's
about
probably
right.
gonna I'm probably gonna write like 200,000 words and then like shrink it.
How long did it take you to write this book?
So now that I look back on it, it was embarrassingly quick. But I think it's because I was in a deeply troubled place in my life, and this was the only thing that kept me sane. So I was writing a lot. But it took me a year and a half from first word to selling it to the editor. Wow. Yeah, so it was actually really quick. And I wrote the first draft in about maybe 8 months, but kind of on and off. So it was like I wrote 30,000 words, then I gave up for a long time, and then I finished. I wrote another like 100,000 words, and then another, and then I shrank it down, and then I edited it. I pretty much queried agents with my first draft. On hindsight, I probably went out too early, and then I did 2 rounds of structural edits with my agent, and then went to editors, and then I did another round of structural edits with my editor, and then finally. So yeah. Whereas this new novel, I'm like, it's already been, I don't know, 6 or 7 months, and I'm 40,000 words. So
it's already been 6 or 7 months. That's pretty remarkable.
I think in a way being in an MFA program, like it's awesome because I'm learning a lot, but at the same time I now know so much and I like can overthink lots of things. Whereas when I was doing this, it was just like an act of faith. I'm like, oh, I can just write, just put words down, and I have no idea where it's gonna go or like what's gonna happen. And it's like if anyone plays computer games, it's like you're in the map and like everything is dark and you can only see like right in front of you, and like your path gets carved up.
Yes.
Probably not always like walk right. But yeah, basically like trying to. Whereas now I feel like I can see the whole map and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get stuff there, like something I'm gonna finish the game.
Yeah. You just have to bring yourself back to that.
Yeah.
That's all you need to do,
Yeah. So we'll see.
Yes. That was really fun to talk to you.
Yeah,
But now, let's have some questions from the audience. Danny, what's your question?
Oh man, so much writing about the future and the past. Why are you avoiding the now?
Oh, that's a very deep question. You have to wait till we're on camera to ask. A lot of my short fiction deals with the now. Yeah, but I think, I don't know. I feel like maybe it's a lack of confidence. And I feel like I don't have enough to say about the now to fill an entire book. Whereas with like a short story, I can be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna write about that thing, and like it's gonna be done in like 5,000 words. But then with before I embark on a really long thing, I need to have like a meaty topic. I don't know. Whereas with this, it was kind of like, oh, I'm gonna write about this future world where like people live forever and I'll have to invent everything, And then my new book is like, it's gonna be from 1940 to like 2018 and about climate change and land reclamation and the history of Singapore and World War II. All that stuff. So it's kind of like, I think, at some point I'm gonna have to let that go and just be like, I'm gonna write a story about a girl living in Austin, being a writer, stream of consciousness, at some time. At some point.
That's how I feel about, I have written a YA novel, and I've never felt any desire, really, to write a novel that's for OAs, old adults.
Us old adults.
Old adults. But I feel like someday maybe it will come to me, but I just haven't had that. It hasn't sort of, the instinct hasn't come to me yet to do that. I totally understand that. Any other questions? Hi, Willie.
Oh, I've got one.
Paul.
I want to ask you this too. Have there been any interpretations or reactions that have surprised you since this is coming?
That's an interesting one.
Interpretations or reactions. I feel like people either really, really get it or they just don't connect with it at all. So So I think a lot of people, and it's because it kind of falls between genres, it's going to depend so much on like where you are coming from as a reader. So I was like, because you know I love happiness and I love making myself happy and like self-care, I was reading all of my Goodreads reviews. So very curious, as you knew. So every day I go on there and I'm like, oh hey, another person rates my book, cool. For like the 6 months leading up to the book's publication. Anyway, so but what I saw was really interesting because like lots of some people will be like, oh, this book was really pacey and gripping and it's basically like a thriller and I turned the page really quickly, and those were often the literary readers. And then other people would be like, man, this was the slowest read ever. Like, it was all about the characters, nothing really happened, and you just like hear about these two women's like lives, and I thought it was going to be much more exciting because of the like write-up and how it's like this sci-fi world and lots of stuff.
Wasn't even a single gun.
Yeah, and then
single gun.
yeah, and then same thing with the world. Some people were like, oh, I like they were like, oh, I felt like so much was left unsaid, but I wanted to know more about like how the world functioned, like what were the details of it, what were the social, I don't know, strata like so. Or like, how did they eat, what did they drink, like everything. And then other people were like, oh, I hated the mention of like diamond skin and all the specifics. I wish there had been less of that and it had been more about the human story. So yeah, I think all the reactions were like so varied because it's between like sci-fi and literary fiction, so to speak. But then some people like really, really got it and they would write to me and say like, oh, and it's usually people who dealt with like loss in some way, which really means a lot to me because I think this book for me came out of like a place of loss. And so when they write me, they say, oh, this really spoke to me, and it kind of like confronts like mortality and like losing your loved ones in a way that I haven't encountered like other books. That really means a lot to me, and that surprised me because I guess I was so focused on like how everything was going to be awful that I didn't realize that like, a small group of readers were like really on it.
That's an interesting. It's interesting to think about how book marketing and then like that sort of like the social mediaization of book reviewing has really changed, I think, like what, it's changed like the way people read books, like this is like it delivered on these things, which I expect from this kind of a book, and it's a book, and when you do have reactions from people who, like, yes, it did all of this stuff, but also this book was like tremendously moving to me because it was really to me about loss there's so much about the parent-child relationship, and it's like that's when you know that. So that person read your book as a book, not as like
it was like the height of the
or just like this was supposed to be a thriller.
Yeah.
There wasn't even a single chase or whatever. Like what makes a thriller? What makes a dystopian?
Yeah.
It can be frustrating, I think.
Yeah.
As a writer, it can be frustrating. I'm sure it can be. It's frustrating as a reader as well. Because who knows what books were missing because they're being marketed as something, What else?
Maybe to go along with that, what was the reception like in Singapore?
Yeah, I think
What did you say?
I said bestseller top 5.
no. It was,
Bestseller, top 5.
No, it was number 6. It was number 6. The
Number
highest one
6.
was 6. Yeah, the reception
Amazing.
was.
Is that true?
Yeah, it's true.
That's amazing.
But it's not. Yeah. There are other factors at play. Maybe I'm Singaporean. I think the reaction was like a lot of it was around kind of like my story as a writer rather than the book per se, because it's such a kind of it's really kind of vibrant and like lots of stuff is going on in like the Singapore literary scene. But I think as a small country, people often look to like international success and like want that like international recognition for better or for worse. So I think people were very excited that like this got sold in the US and like also in the UK, and it was like getting attention kind of from like bigger literary communities. So a lot of the response was that, and that people were right, and also that I think I don't know, they seemed happy to like it. My mom was like, why do you have to write a book with this title? Like, this is not she's like, what am I supposed to say to my church friends? And I was like, well, if they read it, they would know that it's really about like how life is precious and everything. So so the response was good.
My name Miss Kenny. I've been a fan of your writing since a child. But I follow you on Instagram. Hope you'll follow me back. But what I want to ask
I can follow you back.
what I want to ask
The
is,
question is, why don't you follow him on Instagram? Go ahead.
I've heard some rumor on the media that Miss Heng recently is writing poetry also. And they are brilliant poems. So I wonder whether in the future is there a possibility that you will put together a collection of poetry?
No, shut up.
Wait, I can never tell if
It's
he's
really-
joking or
it's
not.
true.
Are you really writing poems?
I'm in a poetry workshop. I'm in Rochester.
What?
So yeah, and they keep telling me that I should write more poetry, but I'm like, it's terrible. You're just being nice to me.
No, poets aren't nice. That's a great thing. Will you smuggle me some of her poems?
Oh, I would.
Shania, as I have been told before,
I saved that.
poetry is for the gods and fiction is for the people. And I'm
It's
not smart enough to write for the
Carrie
gods.
said
So
that.
no, it was
Who is that mean?
no, it was
What's her face?
what's it? It was the book by the playwright.
Sarah Rule.
Sarah Rule. Yeah, she said
Oh,
it.
yeah. Yeah.
She said it.
We were reading Sarah Rule's book of letters between Sarah Rule and Max Ritvo, and there are tons of Sarah Rule poems in that book. They both write poems. So
I wish I was smart enough.
I love when people who are outside of outside of the world of poetry write poems.
Commissioner effect.
It is the Commissioner effect. It is. What else? Maybe. Oh yeah.
I felt like when I was reading, there's a real sense of remove with the language that I feel fits the characters really well. Like, it didn't read like I was reading characters who feel like they're running out of time and have a lot of things to do urgently. It felt like I was reading language that fit characters who are living for hundreds of years.
This is like
And I was
185th year on this planet.
Yeah, I was curious if that was, intentional and how you sort of thought about that in crafting your language.
Yeah, that's a really
Nerdy
cool question.
question, but-
Yeah, that's really well observed. I think I'm glad that it worked well, but I don't think it was intentional.
Okay.
Yeah, like people have read my other, like my short work and stuff in the class and things. I think that's kind of my style, and I tend to write quite distant or quite detached, which I have been called out for by Tracy sitting over there. What are you carrying?
I like the audible gas.
I was like,
Audible
can we
gas.
have more interiority here and here? I'm like, anyway, but yeah, so I think that's my style of writing, and I think in this particular case it lends itself well to
Yeah.
the topic and kind of the theme, and like because these characters are these kind of self-absorbed, unself-aware people, that it works. But I do think like in other cases it's because I'm not pushing enough against like I'm not putting them in difficult enough situations that they break down, so they're still kind of allowed to be calm and everything's going well. That's something that I'm working on in other stories. But yeah, I'm glad it worked on this book.
So, what is your writing process?
Where do you get your ideas?
Oh God.
What is
Divulging
your-
into that part of the night.
What's your writing process?
I
Is
don't
the
know. You
question.
know what my writing process is.
Does it just happen like that?
No. Well, when I wrote this book, I was working in finance, and I woke up every day at 6 a.m. and wrote for 1 hour a day, and then I finished the first draft. And that was my writing process back in like my non-fictional life. And since coming here, as many of you know, I've been kind of plagued with existential angst and unproductive like depression and lots of other things. But yeah, so having like way more time has not made me more productive essentially. So I have to figure out a whole new writing process. And now I think I try to do like 3 hours in the morning and then like 2 or 3 hours in the afternoon. And when I'm working on a novel, it's a lot easier because I kind of say, okay, I'm just going to do 1,000 to 1,500 words a day. So every day I just need to do that, and then I'm done. So that's what I'm doing right now. And when I'm doing short stories, it's a lot harder because I need to like think of new ideas. And when I'm doing short stories, I try to do 1 story a week. So I spend the weekend planning and like thinking about what I'm going to write, and then I spend the week writing. This is all like ideal case, and as you know from my like anguished texts, that it doesn't happen. And, but this is like if everything went well, this would be more like process.
Practice writing every day.
Yeah. So I try
Right,
to do
Carrie?
the like everyday thing. And I was actually told by Carrie that I shouldn't be writing so much.
That is so hypocritical.
No, it's because I came to her and I was like, Carrie, I'm really depressed. I don't know
You
what's
were
going
you
on."
were having a really hard time. I don't think I was saying write less. I think I was saying you know, have a little bit more self-compassion and patience with yourself.
Some things I don't understand.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I got better at it. Now I like exercise and things like that.
Yeah, it's really important, it really is.
You know.
It's the whole thing, yeah.
So I had a question, this is more of a personal question, but as a former New Yorker who moved to Austin, what was that transition like for you? And how do you feel like that affected, I guess, your craft and the way that you...
It was hard. I moved here from London, which is also like a big bustling city, and I went from being like, I feel like when I was writing with a full-time job, I was just like so desperate for time. Like I would like, you know, I just would like manage my time really, really carefully. Like I had a schedule. I knew when I was going to wake up, and if anything went wrong, I would snap at whoever was making it go wrong. And I was just a very impatient, unhappy person. So I had this like really intense schedule mapped out, and like, so back then I was like, oh, if only I had more time. And also in London, it's frustrating because just like New York, you know, the tube breaks down, like there are all these delays, everywhere's crowded. It takes like an hour to get really simple things done. You go to the post office, you have to wait like 5 hours kind of thing.
In line,
so,
like
yeah.
book, you know.
And so I was like, oh, Austin's gonna be great. It's gonna be so relaxing.
Oh, gosh.
Things are gonna work so well. It's gonna be like, you know, like it's not gonna be like
And then the
7
traffic
million
issue, yeah.
people and so on. So then I came, and it was like, you know, people say the traffic's bad, but it's nothing compared to like big city.
Yeah.
I don't know, like I used to commute like, you know, yeah. I mean, my commute was like 40 minutes to work by the tube, but then sometimes it would break down and you get stuck for like an hour and a half, or there would be a tube strike and then you would have to walk to work and it would take 4 hours. You know, stuff like that would happen. But that doesn't happen in Austin. So I do feel like my quality of life here is way better, but ironically that has kind of affected my productivity in a way that I have not expected. Like I think back in London my life was so full that I had to like push really hard to find the time to write, so I was really committed to writing. Whereas now it's like my life is kind of empty. So because of that, it's like, yeah, it's leisurely, and I have so much time that it's difficult to like, you know, yeah, to actually sit down and like focus, because then I'm like, oh, I can do it later, or I could, you know, and also you don't have as much like stuff filling the tank because you don't have like so much external stimulation. You know, it's not like being in a city where you kind of trapped and go out for a walk and like you still see stuff and like people, and I don't know, I feel like here often I go out for a walk and it's like lots of cars. You know, I could probably actually going to different places for but I think moving from a very big, dense urban place, it can feel a bit, yeah, like unsettling in the beginning. So the first year was tough. Now I feel like I'm getting more into the rhythm of it, and I think it's like what we talked about, kind of, you know, being compassionate to yourself. And I try and exercise a lot, and you know, I make the effort to see people. So in the past, it would be kind of, you know, you take for granted that you see people because you're in a really crowded place, and you bump into people, you go to work every day, you see people in the office. Whereas now I'm like, if I don't make the effort to see people, I'm at home, and then, you know, I'm in my pajamas from like 8 a.m., you know, from waking up to going to sleep. So I just like try to, yeah, get coffee or like go work with people in different places. I change my cafes, so I have like, because I usually go to a cafe. In London, I had my routine, and I was like, I go to this cafe every day, and I work in this cafe, and that was helpful because there was so much going on, right? Whereas here, I'm like, if I go to the same cafe every day, it gets really kind of, it like weighs down on you. So yeah, it gets quite stale, and then it just becomes like your living room, and then you get the same kind of like, oh, what am I doing here? So I try to go to like different cafes. Yeah, in the morning I'm like, oh, what will I do today? Maybe I'll go to that cafe, this one.
Yeah.
Go crazy, go to South Austin. So yeah, I do stuff like that. But hopefully your translation goes well. Yeah.
How about one more question and then we will, do we have one more question?
Yeah, so say someone read your book and enjoyed it, which I did. What's a helpful thing we can do? Like, is it helpful to rate it on Goodreads or review it or log it, or like what actually helps an author? I've just always wondered that.
I don't know.
Great question.
I feel like Carrie would know better. I always say reviews, I guess. I don't know. What, like,
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Probably like an Amazon review.
Yeah.
I think there's like an algorithm where you get a certain number of reviews and then your book is.
Yeah, like
Did you stand up because you have a suggestion? Oh, I thought you were standing up to be like, I
Oh,
know exactly
yeah,
what your suggestion
I
is.
was actually
Yeah,
gonna
what-
say, yeah, the reviews are good, and then also, even if you already have a copy of the book, if you want other people to read it, request that your local public library acquire the book if they don't already have it.
And you can do that online, easily.
Yeah. Thank you.
Let's all do that like right now.
Everyone take out your phones.
5.
Hit it with
The library has it here in Austin.
Oh, cool.
It has a
Okay.
few copies.
Yeah, thanks for reading.
I'm trying to think, does anybody else have any like advice or like for how to support a book?
I actually we actually went to an indie bookstore
Yeah.
in Providence, and I embarrassed Rachel by
Oh,
asking
God,
for
yeah.
the book if they had it. They're like, no, we don't have it, but they ordered it, and a couple of weeks later,
Well,
basically
kind of glossing over.
tweeted they were like a bestseller in that
Yes.
place.
Wow.
So, like if you just ask for it, don't buy it there. But I'm sorry, no.
No,
And then maybe somebody else would buy it.
Yeah.
and
But then
it was-
apparently it's already well in the store, so yeah, they didn't have it to begin with, so that was nice.
There are just so many books published
Yeah.
every year. There's so many books published, so anything you can do. And you love a book, you know.
Yeah.
Like, tell people about it, give it as a gift,
Tell your
you know.
friends. Book clubs. Oh, I just got invited to speak at a book club. That was really nice. So if you ask your book club to like choose it, you know, I would really go and talk to them.
This is a perfect book for a book club. Because it's literary, it's gripping, but also, you know, it is genre as well as literary fiction. This is a great book for a book club. I'm going to suggest my book club for you. I don't even have a book club. Yes, who's in? We'll start it right now.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rachel. This is And if you haven't bought the book yet, there are copies here to be. Let's get this book on the Malvern bestseller list.
Carrie's book. Carrie
Yeah,
also
my
has a
books
book.
are up there as well.
Yeah.
Be happy to,
Yeah.
yeah.